Good afternoon and warm greetings from Stony Brook University. I'm Rob Purdasati from undergraduate admissions, and I'd like to welcome you to a very special and very timely workshop, Crisis Counseling, Navigating Change in Higher Education. But before I introduce our speaker, I want to acknowledge all of you, our counselors, and all that you do to help guide students, advocate for students, provide insight, and really assist them in their journeys in life. And we want to thank you for all that you do. I know during these unprecedented times, there are so many challenges, and we thank you and we understand and we hear you, which is why we're here today to sort of help talk about some of those challenges and also how we as counselors sort of deal with this heightened level of crisis. You are really, really amazing people for what you do, and I know you probably don't hear that enough, and I know you have a lot on your plates and you work really hard, but I want you to know from us, we really thank you because we see on our end the result of the students that you bring to us. I just want to let you know before I introduce the presenter that during the workshop, you will have opportunities to ask questions, and you'll see a ask a question person on there, and you can direct your question there throughout the workshop. We also have some international counselors with us today, and so we have a Ask the International Counselor module as well. So feel free to use both of those modules. We also want to take some questions at the end of the presentation because that's what we do, right? We're counselors. We talk, we discuss, we network, and that's really important because that's really what we do, and we all help our students move forward and have dialogue, and that's really important. I want to give you some background about our presenter, who I've had the honor of working with and collaborating with for probably over 2 decades now here at Stony Brook. Ellen Driscoll is our Associate Dean of Students within the Division of Student Affairs here at Stony Brook University. And her role with her team is to be student support, student advocate. So what do I mean by that? Think of it as a counselor yourself. You are advocating for your students. So Ellen and her team sort of help bridge the gap between the academic life, the student life, residential life, the commuter life, lives of students in general. So she and her team are there to kind of be that bridge of support, that go-to, that first contact, of referral or counseling, problem solving, and helping our students move ahead with their journeys. Ellen's background is in social work, so certainly she understands and appreciates the role of counselors in helping students through their journeys. She also understands the challenges that counselors face as you do those things. So I'm going to stop and I'm just going to say I am delighted, I am honored, I am privileged to introduce my colleague, my fellow counselor, and my dear friend, Ellen Driscoll. Ellen, take it away.
Thanks, Rob. That was much more than I deserved. Thank you very much.
Not at all.
Sneaking that in there. Welcome, everybody. And Rob's so right about this. Thank you all for all that you do. Because we seem to get the best of all your good work when students show up at Stony Brook. We're really privileged, and working on a college campus in higher ed is absolutely the best job I think that there is in the world. So I have I'm going to try to share my screen, put a couple slides up so we get a chance to talk. We practice this, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'll be able to get it together. But okay, so there we are, far beyond. That is our little motto here at Stony Brook. And I think that that's part of what we're going to try to work out, what we're talking about today. So greetings from Huntington. I'm working from home, as everybody seems to be in these unprecedented times. So with all that happening, the folks in admissions, my friends, came up with this very lofty title about navigating changes in higher ed. And it would be really great if we could all figure that out in the next 45 minutes. We could be somebody, you know what I mean? Because the changes in higher ed, it's much more than we've spent years talking about transitioning students from high school to college. But the way that higher ed has been changing as a result of the pandemic is really, it's quite interesting. And it does take a lot of time to talk and to sort it out. And people like yourselves, we need you to help us talk about these things. But since you are trapped with a social worker for a couple of minutes, one of the things that we started doing here at Stony Brook 2 years ago now is I was part of a pilot program with our Introduction to Stony Brook class, the 1-credit course that freshmen are mandated to take. We had a pilot program about mindfulness. And so what that meant is a certain number of us who were instructors, and the instructors for the Introduction to Stony Brook class are not faculty members, they're staff members like myself. And we get to do creative things as a result of that to introduce them to Stony Brook. So we know over the years that college students, especially the Seawolves, get a little stressed out about their academics and other things, especially transitioning. So we started a mindfulness section, a bunch of them, and the way that we started every class with the students was a 3-minute breathing, to just come in and relax and settle down and prepare yourself, be mindful for what was about to come. So these are 18-year-olds, as you know very well. And so at first we were like, oh boy, we could end up being the coolest instructors on campus or the weirdest instructors on campus when we started this idea. And I have to tell you, after the 3rd week, I knew that this was working out, because the students came into class. One student who sat next to me every time plopped down in his chair and just was like, oh, I can't wait. And it kind of helped to inform us, like the whole semester did, the whole 2 years that we've been working on it. It informed us how stressed out students are in ways that we hadn't imagined before. And so we continue to do this. I've even worked it into our staff meetings. So there's no better time than to get a new skill, to get a new gift from the folks in the mindfulness world than to learn how now to just shut everything out and breathe. Because I think that's going to be what my talk is going to be all about. Because if we can figure out how to breathe, I think we can help our students and our parents figure out how to breathe, because we need to do some slowing down and breathing. Okay, so this is what we do. So I have a little timer here. I am going to set the timer. I am going to say a few things. I'm going to walk you into the relaxed mode. We're going to take some quiet time, 3 minutes of breathing, and then we'll go back to our conversation. Okay, so find yourself comfortable where you are. And the cool part about this, since we're just relaxed, you can turn your video screen off if you want to. There's no rules for this. So just make yourself as comfortable if you like. If you like to close your eyes, that'd be good. If you want to keep your eyes open, that would be good too. And I'm going to start the timer. So here we go. In the position that you're in, try to have your feet flat on the floor. Put your palms on your legs, palms up, palms down, but rest them in a comfortable position. Because what we're going to do is just breathe. All of the things that have been going on for you so far today are going to take a break. So the way to just breathe is to focus on the breath. So everybody take a deep breath through your nose, follow it past your throat, through your lungs, down to the very, very bottom of your lung. And then follow it back. Comes back up through your lungs, through your throat, back out through your nose. Focus on the breath as we breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Notice the temperature of the breath as you breathe it in. What does your nose inform you of the temperature? As you breathe out, is it a different temperature? Is it cooler going in? Is it warmer going out? Focus on your breath. As other things come in and out of your mind, it's okay. Bring it back to the focus on your breath as we breathe in and breathe out. There is nothing you have to do or think about now except breathing. Breathing in, breathing out. Comes through your nose, past your throat, down deep into your lungs as it turns back through your lungs, past your throat, out your nose. We like to breathe in good and exhale stress. Breathe in peace, exhale stress. And we can breathe in each other in these isolating times and exhale the loneliness. Breathe in, breathe out. One more breath. Breathe in, breathe out. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to our discussion. Okay, we're back. We can't hear you, so if you're snoring, that's okay too. It's just a way to center ourselves and get ready for whatever's to come next. And the reason I started with that is because what has come next for us, for all of us, is something we could have not anticipated 3 months ago. And the trickiest part for everyone under stressful situations like this is we always, human beings, look for when is it going to be over so I can plan the recovery. And we're kind of struggling with that right now. We're not really sure when it's going to be over. And one of the things that's happening here at Stony Brook is the students, we sent them all home, as you may know. Wolfie's lonely too. And when I saw this picture, I was reminded of days when we could have kind of done this together in a room, sitting around. The energy that comes from connecting with other human beings has been lost for a time. When you are counselors and you're working with young people, you get energy from them. Instinctively, you will know what to do because you get the energy from them. It's the hardest job in the world. People can be counselors, but counselors with young people is a little tricky because adolescence should be a diagnosis all in itself, as you know. But we don't have the energy from the young people. So we have to check in with ourselves. So that's what I want to spend a little bit of time talking about. How are you doing? Some of these things that we have learned through this pandemic is people who are helpers are having a hard time. At first, it looked a little bit easier to go and work from home, but it isn't if your home is full of students who didn't go to class and who you need to teach them. Home is not easier if there's other people sharing the same computer, which we've learned from our students. People who are helpers end up feeling like maybe I'm not doing enough. When your workday starts at a certain point, you cram everything in there, you hop in the car and you head back home. It's almost like we could do a self-accounting of how much got accomplished today. But when you're working from home, people had a hard time figuring that out. When is the workday over? And if I did walk away to do the dishes so that we're ready for dinner, did I short the university somehow? Am I not doing enough? My colleagues and I, we've been talking a lot about that. It's been kind of confusing. But along with the work part of it, everything else in our lives has changed. You may not have appreciated the routines that you were in until you lost them. You may not have appreciated a good night's sleep until all of a sudden you're having odd dreams and night terrors, things that people are reporting now that they just weren't experiencing before. It may not have ever been anything that they ever experienced. The uncertainty of the pandemic has really kind of messed with those of us who like to be organized because we can't organize, we don't know what's next. So there's been a lot of mood swings, and I don't know how you folks are doing with the Zoom thing, but I keep telling my colleagues, I can't wait till I see them 3D again. The one-dimensional on the screen, it's kind of tiring. I don't know why I sit there all day instead of standing and running around campus, which you think would be more tiring, but the sitting and staring definitely gets old. So all of these things, when I ask about how you're doing, you need to know that the students are experiencing the same thing, that they also have a little Zoom fatigue. They're not sure if they're doing enough. They also are having nightmares and uncertainty because not only is their world changed and their identity of who they were in that space, which is their friends and maybe their teachers or their extracurricular activities or their sports. All of those things that as a young person at this point in their life, they connect themselves to and can kind of tell how they're doing through their peer group, it was taken away. They were sent back home to spend a lot of time with their family. That's not the challenge of this time in their development. The challenge of this time in their development and their growth is outside. It's with us. It's with their peers. So they too aren't sleeping very well. They're disoriented. Their identity has been shaken a little bit. And when the mood swings come with young people, it's of concern for all of us, as you know. So our best way to help them is to first help ourselves. The mindfulness thing, we talk about breathing. Mindfulness means, number one, be aware of where I'm at and what I'm thinking and how I'm feeling. If we can do that for ourselves every day, make that commitment, then when the students and the parents and the other issues of the day come by, we will be better prepared for it because we'll be able to just be present. And I think that that's one of the things. We have a student emergency support fund that was started by the generosity of the community here. And as part of that fund, we call all the students to ask them how they're doing and how can we help them financially through the fund. And what we have learned more than anything, what's been more important than the dollars that we've been able to give them, is that they have somebody to tell their story to. And young people get caught with this all the time. Like, it seems like we adults know their story when we talk about loss and grief. If you have had a student whose parent has died, you know the story. You heard it in the teacher's room. So when you see the student, you offer your condolences, you give them a hug, you ask them how they're doing, but we tend to not ask them to tell us the story of what happened. We think that maybe it's too upsetting sometimes. It's human nature to not want to put a burden on another person. But what's happening with this pandemic and all the losses that you young people and old people have had is that we need to tell what specific is happening to us. I'm sure you've been hearing it on the thing, that whole expression about we're all in the same boat with this. What they've been rolling out on social media is we're in the same storm, but we're in different boats. So being able, and I love that, so being able to give a student an opportunity to tell their story about what's it been like for you to be home and separated from your peer group and your school and your extracurricular and your sports is going to be really important when we start to connect with them again, or while you're connecting with them now. And it absolutely is our plan when they get back to us, when you send them to us, that we'll be able to do that for them. So the most important thing, first and foremost, is your own self-care. That's what we've been challenged in student affairs, to really take a look at ourselves first, take this time away from the noise and try to figure out what's happening to us as everything else has been stripped away. And the idea is, if we can be good at that and try not to be too afraid of the truth, we're going to come back stronger professionals, we're going to come back stronger counselors, and we're going to be able to listen to our students and our family members who have been afraid, because we won't be afraid. We will know that this is hard, but we will have tools and we'll have ways to get through it, because all we need to do is speak truth. And that seems to be the way that people who are peaceful during this time are feeling that that's been their answer. So we want to share that with all of you, because then we can get back to the community care. First, we do the self-care, then we get back to the community care. And it won't be what's the difference between one and the other. The things that we do for ourselves end up, fortunately, being the things that are helpful to other people. So as helpers, I've been guilty of this myself. I think that if I do all this stuff to help the students, then they'll be okay. And then I go home and I'm exhausted, and I'll say something and somebody say, well, wait, what would you tell a student in this situation? And I'm like, oh, that. So sometimes we give away all the good stuff. So our challenge during the pandemic is try to hang on to the good stuff. You're not going to be able to have this kind of conversation with students right away. Have it with yourself. Self-care first, then comes community care. And we are waiting for the students to get back to Stony Brook. But when it happens, hopefully when this pandemic ends, we will have all learned the lesson to just be. It's a mindful expression. It's just be. It's like the breathing for 3 minutes. What are you doing? I'm just breathing. Being kind and being gentle. And then after that, you'll know instinctively, you'll have confidence, you'll know what to do to help the other person, to help them with their fears, to help them with their uncertainty. There aren't answers about this. It's more of a just being. That's the answer. So Rob and I are here, and everybody else is here to answer questions and talk to you folks, whatever you want to do. But thank you for listening.
Sorry. I'll read off the questions so that we can all hear it. Ellen, I just want to thank you. In doing that breathing exercise, it always reminds me, in all of our work, sometimes we forget to breathe, and it seems like the simplest thing to do, and yet it causes us the most stress sometimes. And I know, as I have to say, and I don't know how others feel, but as I was going through the breathing process, I noticed my shoulders just sort of dropped. You know, it was like, oh, I'm not hunching. It's literally just sort of melted. It was such an experience. And I wasn't snoring, but I could feel myself like just, you know, sort of going into a very different sort of state. So thank you for that. And I do agree that in order for us to be effective helpers to others, we've got to help ourselves first. So let's see what questions we have. Oh, I see a bunch of questions. Okay, so one question here is, oh, that's funny. I can't say that one. I guess someone must know me. How can we support students over the summer is a question, because we're actually into summer right now, and what can we do? And I guess, you know, how do you do that when physically we're not necessarily connected? So if you're a school counselor, students are not in your high schools or your middle schools or your elementary schools. For the college folks, it's our students aren't here. What kinds of things can we do to support our students over the summer? You want to take that? You want me to? I have to look in the camera. So I think, and that's a good question. And it's funny that question came up because and it's timely. We're actually having another Zoom workshop next week about what students can do over the summer to maintain their productivity and connectiveness. And at the same time, because again, we are in a university trying to help students understand the things that they can do that would make them stand out in the application process. But I think, you know, for a student in the summer, again, there's a lot of anxiety right now. There's anxiety over, will they be physically in their schools, whether they're public schools or their colleges, or will there be a hybrid approach? I'm applying to college, for example, and I don't know, do I have the ability to take all the exams that colleges are looking for? And or if colleges are announcing that we're test optional, I hate to throw that out there, but how are we really going to look at that? And so I think part of it is just sort of, again, helping the students sort of slow down and stay in the here and now, because very often we're either looking back or we're looking ahead, but we're not looking here. And how do you get students to do that? Because students are constantly multitasking, right? And I think social media has sort of taught them how to do that. They can be on their Twitter account or on their Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and all that, and they're doing many, many things, but they're not focusing. So how do we get them to say, in your world of multi-dimensions, slow down and focus on now? And that's the heart of, I think, a counseling dilemma, because we're trying to get them to do so many things, and they're trying to do so many things, but sometimes they're forgetting to breathe as well. So do we have exercises with students helping them sort of calm down, helping them, give them access to resources so they can investigate certainly what they can be doing, but also reminding them what Ellen just reminded us, like, slow down. I don't know, what are your thoughts, Ellen?
I agree 100%. I think what the students miss is their ability to be connected with other people. So Rob's right about all the social media and things. Those aren't the kind of connections that we're talking about, but that's what they're used to going to. And those are coming up upsetting for a lot of people. So how else can they do? Again, we're not the only ones who are stripped down and try to sort out, what does this mean for me? But how does that happen for them? How do they get that opportunity to be like, well, who am I? This is like the ultimate challenge, the human challenge. Like, we don't have other people to bounce things off of. in the same way that as talking about young people, we have ourselves. This is an opportunity to write, to read some things, to try to put something together. It's perfect time to write your college essay if that's something that you wanted to practice doing way before it's time to even do that, because these are times, the journaling and the kinds of things, the art that students are coming up with, the things, the creativity now is sparked by their opportunity to be by themselves and to really live in their own skin for a while, which I think is very helpful, but it's scary at the same time.
There's a question that sort of builds upon this in terms of how you reach out. In particular, there are students who might not have access to technology. And there's a question that's asking how many students don't have access to technology, and what are some of the what are some of the tools that can be used to sort of reach out to students to engage them. And that's a real good way. And we've seen a lot of that in our own students, where we have a lot of students who don't have access to a laptop or a phone, or they're, like Ellen mentioned earlier, they're sharing technology. So even if they have a tool, they don't have exclusive use of that tool. And so how do you reach out to folks and students to sort of keep them connected? I like the journaling thing. I like that a lot. But again, I think the question, well, how do you get them to think about these things if they don't have the technology for you to reach out to them? That's a good one. That's a real good one.
Well, one of the things that's come up with us, with the students that we've talked to for the emergency fund, is there's not going to be the jobs during the summertime that they've had in the past. There's a time when the world is going to start opening up again, and they're worried about how we're going to do that. Now, when you put that to a young person, maybe they had a job, maybe they didn't, but they're anxious about the transition to college where everything is going to be new and different. I would offer the same thing we've been offering to the college students. Find the local food pantry and go and volunteer. Find the other place that's looking for volunteers. They're not going to be paid experiences necessarily, but it's kind of scary to step into a new environment, offer your services. You'll get the feedback that you need about feeling purposeful. And also you'll be learning those skills about meeting new people, finding your way, and whatever that's going to be. So we've been pushing for a lot of volunteerism from the young folks this summer. Maybe it will become part of who they are for the rest of their life. But if the money's not available for a job, it doesn't mean you're stuck mowing your dad's lawn every day. It means there are things in the community, places that need you. And then that sparks some of those kinds of things that we're hoping, the skills that they can get for themselves.
I think, I know from the college admissions perspective, I know that we often tell students to think about, make that list, the brag sheet of the things that you've accomplished, the things that you would like yet to do, the skill sets that you have. So it's sort of like helping them build a resume, activity report, but also really just take a self-inventory, I think, of those things that you kind of like. I kind of like this technology stuff. Well, not me, because I'm not all that good at it, or I kind of like I always like talking with people. That's kind of why I do what I do. But if we can get students to think about, what are the things you like on a day-to-day basis? You're in a close quarter now with your family. How do you feel about that? Are you the introvert that people are saying that you were, or are you truly the extrovert who is now sort of feeling clustered because I don't have all these other outlets? Just to get them to think. And I guess if the technology is not there to get them to do, how do you assign them that? I don't know. Is it the old-fashioned, you write a letter, you send something home to the address and say, here are some things to work on for the summer that you can do even without technology? So I definitely think the volunteerism is a good one, because that's what we use in our holistic review in college admissions. And it's not just a laundry list of everything that they've done since exiting the womb, but rather those meaningful things that they've spent some time thinking about. That's a real good fit, because if they're asked for an interview, they're going to talk about it, and we're going to see their eyes light up. Even on a camera, we can see their eyes light up when they talk about those kinds of meaningful experiences that they've had and why they've done it. Not just because I did it because it's going to look good on my college application, but I did it because I'm doing something positive, something impactful, and what did I learn from that? And so they need to take that inventory when they do that volunteer experience. What did they learn? What was it like? What were the things that they didn't like about it? And what were the things that they loved about it? And can you take some of those skills and say, I can apply it towards deciding on an academic program in college, deciding on what kind of part-time job I might eventually want once I'm in college or wherever. So I think there's valuable tools, and I'm an old-fashioned guy. I mean, this is year 30, I don't want to say 30, 35 for me, and I still like to write, and I write notes to students, I send things to students, not just by text and not just by email. I'm kind of old-fashioned. Send a card, a little note, and put a little, hey, how you doing? Did you think about doing something like this? Let's keep connected, and maybe, you know, that'll inspire them. And if you're really brave, and I tend to be pretty brave, I always leave my contact information so that they can reach back to me and say, hey, you know, this is what I thought about it. Maybe it failed, or maybe it was really kind of cool. But again, it's sort of bringing us back to some of those basic kinds of things and how we communicate, because that's what counselors like us got into this business for, because we like that communication, not just the sort of anonymous communication that many of our young people seem to be comfortable with. I'm not judging. Even though I'm in admissions, well, that's why I get paid to judge. Oh, we got some, oh, sorry, I missed all these questions. Okay. Can we talk about how we can help parents? That's a good one, because parents, we all know that parents are very much in this process, some of which are actually more than guiding. So let's see, well, as common applications, SUNY application, or college individual applications considered adding a COVID-10 question to see how the pandemic has impacted them in a way, positive, negative? The answer to that is yes. So the common app, and the reason I know this, I've been participating in the Common Application Virtual Summit, and they have asked a question specifically related to COVID-19, so that we can get an idea as to how it has impacted the student, or how the student feels about what's going on. So that definitely has happened. I haven't seen it on the SUNY application yet, but I definitely know it's on the Common application. Many of our high school seniors are planning to attend a CUNY, and their acceptance was listed as of summer 2020. This allows them to take an online course over the summer. Interesting. We have many students who take summer courses as well. Matter of fact, I was on the phone just before this Zoom presentation with a student who has been admitted for the fall, but will be taking some summer courses now. And actually, that's a good point for all students. So if you do have a communication with your students, one of the things that they can do, particularly juniors, rising seniors, many colleges will offer opportunities to take summer courses, and they are offered online. And for example, at Stony Brook, we have a whole series of courses offered online for high school students that would be appropriate. And naturally, they are typically survey courses. But that's another example. So they're writing their essay, they're taking their inventory, they're doing volunteer experience. But here's another option. Maybe they could take a basic course, an intro to psychology, or a language course, something that speaks to them, but still keeps them connected academically and becomes part of their academic experience once they actually enter college. I want to go back to the parent question, because I think that's really, really important. Not that these other questions weren't, because it's very deep, and it's something we struggle with a lot, because as we all know, we are always advocating for our students to become their own self-advocates, right? So we want them to take charge, we want them to do the work, make the decisions, do the research. But we know the reality is that young people still need guidance, and certainly from their counselors, but well, whether they want it or not, they're going to get it from their parents. And how do we advise parents to help students sort of kind of help them, talk them off the ledge? How do we talk parents off the ledge like we talk students off the ledge? And how can we still engage them? And that's a good question, and we should, because they are invested in this, and probably more so now than ever, given the current climate in the world. Ellen, any thoughts about parent? I mean, I know you work with, I know that our college students tend to be more vocal than, let's say, students who are not yet in college, but I'm sure you probably had one or two phone calls from parents in your tenure. How do you talk to them? How do you get them there? How do you get them to sort of understand that they are a part of the process, but can't completely own the process?
Right. Well, that's, I like that part about can't completely own it. You're being very generous. We do family orientation. That's part of what comes out of the Dean of Students area. When the students are doing their orientation, they're picking their classes, they're meeting their peers, their orientation leaders. And We talk to the parents because we need to partner with the families. That's kind of how we frame the whole thing, because we like to let them know that they're kind of experts on their students. They've probably known them their whole life. And we know the people who are experts on university life. So if the two of us can kind of get together, then the student has the best opportunity to get what they need. So what ends up happening, the reason we talk about that is because students only want to impress the folks when they come to the university. And they probably only want to impress you guys as counselors for them. They want to be okay, they got everything together. But then when they go home, maybe mom and dad and their family see the other side of it. Maybe they see the anxiety or the uncertainty or those kinds of things. So as partners, we try to help them. You can tell us things sometimes, and if your son or daughter is in a crisis, we will call you and tell you. We can do that out of the dean of students office. But I think where parents get jammed up is that they think they need to have the answers. And that's one of the beauties of this pandemic, is it just blew all those think you have the answers out the window. And we have, I was trying to explain to my mom the other day, she's like, so what's going to happen at Stony Brook? And I go, Ma, we got this. If the wind blows from the west, they have a certain plan. If the sun rises before 7:02, they got another plan. There is so many different contingency plans because it depends on what the virus is going to tell us to do. But this is the thing that we're learning as university officials who have been people in the past who have had answers about their own university. If parents can be gentle with themselves and say, like, I'm not really sure of all the answers. Why don't we check out with the university folks? Let's see what they have to say. Let's go on their websites. Let's find out if they have questions, because the questions will probably remain the same between now and August, but I think the answers are going to keep shifting on us. So I think to be able to be a little fluid with that and to give parents permission to not have to know everything, and present that to their children, like, that's okay, let's find this out together. Because that's one of those skills that they're going to need when they get to college anyway. How can you help resolve this for yourself? What are the resources? Let's look into things. I think that we talk to families about, we want to be partners with you. I think if they start seeing themselves as a partner with their college student to be, that may ease some of their stress about being the answer person to their college student to be.
I like that. I'm going to use that in my college presentations. Thank you, Ellen.
You're welcome, Rob.
So actually, this ties really well. There was a question, having the students have the ownership and asking questions. And one of our counselors asked, I find that students are having a hard time communicating online. How do I get them to open up? Or do I need to give them time to re-engage considering the new format? So the question is, I guess they're not comfortable with this format. And how do you get them to open up? How do you get students to open up in general, actually? I'd like to know, because sometimes they're very guarded. I think sometimes students always think they have to give us the correct answer, or we're expecting a certain series of responses from them. And in essence, what we're expecting is the truth. What we're expecting is who they are and their story. And I always talk with students about, just be truthful and just be, tell us your story, because your story is not going to change. Maybe some of the descriptive terms might change, but who you are and how you got there, you don't have to worry about, because it's always going to be just that, the truth. But again, how do you get students who are so anxious about, I've got to do X, Y, and Z in just a certain way to be perfect because I'm up against so much competition. And I'm afraid that if I say something wrong, it's going to be documented and held against me. It's going to be recorded in the application, or it's going to be recorded in something that I've said. And we all have seen examples in social media where students have posted things that probably, if they had some more thought time, would not have posted that, or might have edited it in a different way, or, because students, let's face it, are young and they're still learning. And how do you get them to feel comfortable communicating, at the same time not censoring what they're trying to tell us? So be truthful, be respectful. You have to sort of balance both of those things. But I always remind students that we're people. We're counselors too. We're not the gatekeepers that we're often have been accused of being. We're trying to find ways and I guess methods to enroll a student on our campus and to have them be successful once they're here. if we don't know all the pieces of the puzzle, how can we do that? So it's about how you help them become comfortable with that, confident with that, and trustful that they, they can trust themselves and what they're saying and what their story is about has merit, and that's hard. Because some students will say, well, I've done all these things, but is that really important? Of course, it's important because it's who you are, and how do we get folks to do that? And is it a tool that's of concern, or do they feel more comfortable doing it in an essay where someone is reading it and they're not in the room, as opposed to they're in a Zoom meeting with us and now it's face to face and we have eye contact? I always remind students, when you go on that job interview, that's a very vital skill. They need to be able to be comfortable in a wide variety of vehicles to communicate. Yes, your ideas have to be articulated in writing, but you also need to be able to have a conversation with people, because even with this technology, there's still going to be the people piece to this. Thank goodness, right? As counselors, we need to know that. But how do you get students comfortable, Ellen? How do you get students comfortable with articulating their thoughts to you?
Well, I think one of the things that's happening too with the whole Zoom thing is that we adults kind of crept into their social media world a little bit. I don't think they're very comfortable with that. So I had a bunch of student athletes. We have student athletes at Stony Brook who are peers. They're like a mentor program that the upperclassmen welcome the new freshman athletes to come in, and they're not somebody who's on their team. So they get to meet an upperclassman and learn the ins and outs from somebody else besides their own teammates. And then if they want to complain about their teammates or struggle in some way, they have another set of ears to hear too. But I was on with them the other day. We have 50 of them. And it's very intimidating on our end to have like 50 different faces. And they're all young people and you're trying to engage with them. So I just started thinking about like, what is it that I see in this photo that I can address? So one guy's sitting in his car. So I'm like, Eric, are you driving? What are you doing in your car? Which totally kind of came out of the blue and threw everybody off. Well, Eric just had a storm come through his town and knocked off the internet. So when he tells us that, and then he starts to talk, and it was one of those slow motion, like he's about to freeze kind of thing. Just that one little thing changed the whole atmosphere and got everybody talking again, because we're not supposed to be in their space. That wasn't their idea for us to be Zooming in their space. And people are a little shameful sometimes about the space that they're in. Because when they come to school, they can be whoever they want to be. They don't have to include their family, their hometown, any of that kind of stuff. So what I try to do with them, and Eric was just the latest example of that, is when I have them on the phone, like, what can you tell me about what's going on there? Are you in the kitchen? I try to kind of do things like that. And if they're in the kitchen, I want to know if they cook. It's not what we're calling to talk about, but they still, like Rob always talks about, they get to tell their story. We're intruding on a photograph of their story, but they're still in charge of it. So to find a way to say something, or I don't know, kind of tap into like, I see you and I see what's going on, but I don't know what that means. So tell me a little bit. I think that that's helped us to have the students kind of feel like they're still in charge. And they're not just forced into this, I'd rather meet you in your office where I can be myself. How do we help them to continue to be themselves, even in this goofy environment that we're in right now?
And I wonder, taking that to the next level from the academic standpoint, for those students who are in Zoom classes with faculty, I don't know if you've gotten any feedback from students. Some might be comfortable, some might not be comfortable, because that's a very different experience for most students who have not ever taken an online class. And it was so sudden. It wasn't like, oh, in a month from now, we're going to transition, or next semester, we're going to transition. It's, guess what? This is what our reality is. And, again, some students probably are more comfortable with that forum than others. I know I talked with some students who were not all that comfortable with it. And I'm not quite sure, because if they're the students who sit in the back of the class and don't want to have that interaction right up front, because now it's like, oh yeah, you're right there. I think there was some of that. And it was also, I think, the space thing. Now they're in their space. I don't know. Did you have any students express that concern?
Yeah, I had a professor who sounded a little annoyed. Now, again, I'm going to preface this with, if we weren't having these conversations for the Student Emergency Fund, I might not have been able to be as broad about where did our students go. I mean, I'm a product of public education myself. I went to Cortland, but my privilege was very different than some of our students at Stony Brook. Very different. So because I know all these things, and because the students are saying it's difficult for them to do the online classes because they're little brothers and sisters and there's no privacy and blah, blah, blah. So I had a professor who was annoyed because he said, you have to turn your camera on. So they turned the camera on, and this student was in bed. And he said it in kind of an annoying kind of a way, you know? And so I just kind of like popped in there and I said, that may be the only place that they can be where it's private. Did they have headphones in? And he's like, yeah, they had their, you know, headphone things in. I said, there might not be another place, because I learned that some students went home to where 5 other people are living in the house and they're multi-generational. So they got grandma and grandpa, and then people were sick with COVID, and then the students had to be the care. They went from being college students to head of household in 3 weeks. And now somebody is annoyed because what is this kid doing? What are you doing in bed? This is class. So I think that it helped us to get out of our, I mean, one of the students said to me, how are you guys doing? You know, you can't work either. I go, okay, this is how we do it. We go to work every day, and then we come home to the same, I come home to my kitchen in Huntington every day. And this is part, so now I just have to spend more time here. What happened to you is you're home away from home. If you lived on campus and you had your favorite places to eat, your roommates and your friends lived down the hall. But then we said you have to go back, and now everybody's scattered all over the place, and you can't even go to Starbucks to get a cup of coffee. We had some seniors who had not lived at home since they left their freshman year because they work and take classes around the clock and things. They're sleeping on the couch. Their opportunity to have a bedroom is long gone because they haven't been there. So once we hear these stories of the students, it kind of helps us administrators, staff members, faculty members to be like, oh, okay, I have a judgment. This is how I imagine a remote classroom should look like. But they are scattered all over the place, and it looks very different to a lot of different people. So I think finding a way to engage with them in their space if you can, and at the same time, like, leave the judgments at the door, because it's been very humbling understanding, because they all look the same when they get to Stony Brook. They put their red gear on, they got their smiles, and they're very smart. But they're the places that they've come from. SUNY gave us laptops in case anybody needed them. 200 laptops were going out the door like it was nobody's business. I'm like, how can they be a college student and not have a laptop? Well, because they would go to the local library to use the sync site there. They don't have cable, they don't have Wi-Fi in their home. So all these kinds of things, it was really eye-opening for all of us. So I think that kind of helps us to be like, walk in the other person's shoes for a second type of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm sure we're going to continue to see more challenges as we continue to navigate through this journey, because it's evolving. It changes day by day and sometimes hour by hour, in essence. And we're not used to that, right? I know I'm a Virgo. I like to have everything in plan. And this has been certainly a whirlwind for me, because all the planning in the world doesn't matter. Got to be adaptable. That's something I've learned through this, to be adaptable on cue. Let me see, any other questions before we? No, I think that is unless I have to scroll up. Hold on, that might be my technology skills here. I think that is the end of the questions. So if there are any other questions, we're almost close to the 5 o'clock hour. So Ellen, I want to thank you for being here and sharing with us your expertise and your calm counseling ways. And you remind me of why we do what we do and how lucky our students are to have such amazing counselors. And as we continue with the issues, we will continue to have these kinds of dialogues. And maybe I can get you back at another time later in the semester to see how we're coping once things get back to whatever it is they get back to, in whatever sense we'll know, hopefully very, very soon. But this is a dialogue that continues. It's not a one-time conversation, because our students evolve as do the situations that they're placed in. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining us. And if there are any other questions, you can email us or give us a call, and we will certainly get back to you. And we do wish you peace. We wish you calm. And please continue to do what you do. You are an inspiration for all of us. Your students need you so much more now than ever before. And if you don't hear it enough from folks in your counseling worlds and your administration, always know how important you are. What you do is irreplaceable. And so thank you for guiding our youth, because they are our future and they're in your hands. So thank you very much. Okay.